On the subject of web technologies, I found this little graph which was actually quite fascinating. Now this is on Stack Overflow's. You can look at this insight, stackoverflow.com, their survey for 2019. It gives you all kinds of interesting stuff. I mean, this is a very, very long thing, and I'm only about a little over halfway through this, but it gives you, like top paying, jobs and the various types of programming languages and just all kinds of stuff, here that relate to statistics, based on their survey, and also some of it I'd imagine to be analysis of the metadata from Overflow's, activity, that they have on their site. So, but it's actually quite interesting, you can actually learn a lot about the web technologies here. I wish I would have found this, discovered this like a month ago, but, because I kind of actually been building a similar picture, of all this stuff the hard way. But you can kind of tell, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Yeah, you can kind of tell, what technologies are related. Like for example, if you're a game developer, I don't know why they had this queried in there, but you do have these technologies clustered together, even though this, if you actually look at it, well, let me see if I can find this so I can try to walk you through this if we're zoomed in here, but developer type, this is, the people, that are developing, with these various stacks here. Okay, so that's what we're basing it off. So these are stacks, that are developed under, based on popularity, I think. So you got most people, being database administrators or whatever. They get all these different categories here. People are students, I don't know how relevant this particular thing really is. See, contributing to open source, okay, as a hobby, years of experience, since learning, years since learning to code. So, that's just an interesting statistics about the user base, the people who responded to the survey. Years of coding professionally, coding, by developer type. Again, these kind of useless statistics. These first ones are. Write the first line of code. And I would actually be like right here. So I actually started programming in the late 70s when I was like 10 years old. But I really didn't become a programmer though, because I kind of went into electronics and a bunch of other areas. So whereas I maintain programming is like a thing that I did every now and then, but just I'm not a professional programmer, hadn't been. Let's see, education, attainment, and again, I'd fall into here because I'm completely self-taught on everything, literally everything. I do have some college, but I honestly, I literally attended no more than like 6 classes of every class I ever took. I dropped out of everything. So, again, I think six or seven, actual classes was all I attended for any given subject or even any given class I ever took. But I have, ADD, and at the time I didn't know it, so I was never diagnosed with it until recently. So I just simply couldn't pay attention to class. Even in high school, I had to teach myself everything I knew. Literally everything I know, I've taught myself. I mean, everything, and it includes, through mathematics, physics, science, electronics, programming, everything, you name it. I mean, I'm 100% self-taught, just because I really couldn't pay attention in class. So, but I wanted to hide that fact from people because, I was held back from 4th grade to 3rd grade because all I wanted to do was sit there in class and make computer noises and redesign the enterprise. It drove everybody else nuts. So, so they sent me back a grade in the middle of the year, and boy, that was embarrassing. And I was bullied a lot too prior to that. So I was like, man, they were talking about putting me into an LD class, and I was like, holy hell, I didn't want to do that. I'd really get bullied. So out of pure terror alone, I learned to hide it, hide my problems. So I did as good as I could, but I had to teach myself was the only way around it. So I was at least cognizant enough to do that. But anyway, no, enough about that. But undergraduate major, okay, that's interesting. Types of education, taught yourself, language. At least a lot of people teach themselves languages. That's good. So I won't be looked at too strange if I try to get a job in this, which is kind of the objective here. Race and ethnicity. Okay, I don't care about that. Gender. Don't care about that. The development role and gender. Don't care about that. Experience and gender. Don't care about that. It has no bearing on my paradigm, so I'm not worried about it. Age, don't really care about that. I'm certainly 51, but age and experience, but again, since I haven't been a professional developer, it's just hard to qualify that one way or the other. Confidence and experience, that's self-estimate. Only people with low self-esteem are going to rate low on that. It's based on the surveys. Social media use, what's your handle? I don't know what the hell that means. It was a person that had the most influence this year, Bill Gates. How's Bill Gates going to have any influence on the tech industry? He has like none at all. He's off running a foundation. He doesn't have anything to do with tech anymore. Anyway, okay, most popular technologies. Okay, now this is starting to get interesting. You can see that JavaScript, was something that's really trending up, just like I'd figure. And you look at things like Clojure, that's not a very big part, but then again, a lot of people aren't. There's just not a lot of demand for it. So there's a correlation here between demand and activity in it. In other words, things that are in higher demand, more people are going to be inclined to learn. Okay, so this is most popular technologies. Now, having said that, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're looking at quantities of people, although there is a correlation with some of these. In other words, a hell of a lot of people know CSS and HTML and JavaScript, but that's still not necessarily a number, it's a popularity. So you got to keep that in mind. But Python is actually not only really popular, for example, but there's actually a lot of people that do it, and there's a lot of jobs in demand, so that is backed up. Same with JavaScript, and somewhat the same with HTML and CSS, etc. This this is on Stack Exchange, so you still got to factor in how many people that are front-end developers, for example, may frequent this site as opposed to more artsy-fartsy kind of sites, because again, when you're talking about this stuff, it's still more, you start to enter artists in the equation too, and so forth, so this can be a little misleading. There could be considerably more people in this than you think, but certainly there's some coding involved with JavaScript and everything, because you really can't, well, even though I guess they have JavaScript separated, but again, that could apply to the rear end too, with Node.js and some of those types of things. And SQL, and you keep in mind these percentages are going to certainly total way more than 100. So this is, what you can consider that any one person that may know, like databases, for example, is probably going to know MySQL, but they may know JavaScript and some other things. So that's where these percentages come from. It's just a matter of programming, most popular technologies. But you can figure that most people will know more than one thing here. So that's, where that's going to come from. I don't know why the hell they list this. Who the hell? Okay, popular technologies, that makes sense. But later in these lists, you're going to see that they actually have this, like on that list you might have saw earlier. If you looked at it, they actually list that as like a programming technology. Let me see. What languages are associated with the highest salaries? Okay, Bash, Shell, PowerShell. Who the fuck gets it? That's like me saying, oh, I get a job and I work a lot with Notepad, so I make $49,000 a year. No, there's no correlation there. This is like a utility. It's like a skill that somebody might have, but it's not something you actually get paid for. Nobody's going to be hired strictly because they're a Bash programmer or something. Even though, yeah, you can do programming in that, I guess. And I guess they have scripting, and I guess there's a a demand for it, but it seems to me that's like more of a skill than, that you would do in addition to some of these other things. Like, okay, I'm a Linux person, a Linux IT professional, and of course I know a little bit about how to do a bash shell scripting and or PowerShell scripting or whatever. But I guess it makes sense there. On the surface, that just really strikes me as odd because it's not really programming. It's kind of programming, but and these shell scripts can get pretty sophisticated. But Jesus, I'd use Python or something like that. I mean, it's just a lot simpler, a lot more straightforward than freaking shell scripting. I mean, that's a pain in the ass. Now, PowerShell I don't really know much about, but again, it's kind of the same thing, man. You get Python on your computer, and you got a real programming language under your belt there. Even though it's interpreted, it's still a real programming language, and I mean, it's powerful, or even Ruby. I mean, holy shit, Ruby makes a pretty decent little scripting language. I don't know why people would be using shell scripts. I mean, I guess if you've got a big legacy of shell scripts, because shell scripting is powerful, I'll be the first to admit that, but man, it is awkward as hell. It is just a really fucked up language, in my opinion. It's powerful, but it's fucked up. I'd much rather use a real language, because then you can do so much more with it than just write shell scripts. But again, Python and Ruby make great shell scripting languages. It's one of their popular uses for it. It's one of the reasons it's on every installation of Linux. Python is, because it's a good shell scripting language, among other things. So anyway, but that's just still just a little thing that was kind of struck me as weird. But I kind of answered my own question. I guess there's a reason to have that as a salaried position. Okay, but web frameworks, you're looking at jQuery, and I guess that's about popular technologies. So these are, the most popular, for like frameworks, jQuery, React, Angular, etc. So, React has become more popular than Angular, although I do take exception to this, because AngularJS and Angular aren't the same thing. And AngularJS is like Angular 1, but they changed the hell out of it in Angular 2. And most AngularJS people hate Angular because it is so much more difficult to learn and use, apparently. So these really should be separated out. So in other words, React probably outpaced Angular quite a while ago, because there's probably like, I would guess maybe 30% in AngularJS and 60% in Angular, and it may be kind of the opposite of that, but just 30% probably isn't accurate because of that. They're totaling them all together. Express.js, that's again part of the mean stack. Spring, that's part of the Java stack. Vue is kind of its own stack. I was surprised to see that rated so highly here. But well, that's maybe it warrants taking a closer look at. I'm kind of curious about it from what I've seen, but I didn't know it was that popular compared to the other Angular alternatives. Django and Flask, are basically Python-based technologies, but again, that's not the reason Python is so popular. As you can tell here, I mean, that's still about 25% though, combining these two, but still that doesn't account for Python's popularity, but that's because it's useful for more than just Django and Flask. So it's also very popular for machine learning and scripting and everything else. Laravel, I forgot what the hell that was. I was looking into it the other day. Ruby, not much. I mean, only 8% right there. jQuery is the most broadly used of these lame technologies this year. Use React more than Angular. You son of a... I'm turning Alexa's Cortana off. This is fucking bullshit. And she doesn't pop up that much, but what she does is like Alexa pops up in weird times. Anyway, other frameworks and libraries. Like I said, this is where it gets kind of weird. I mean, CryEngine, for crying out loud, really? Unreal Engine, which is cool. I've got Unreal Engine on here. I got it on here because it looks like a good sandbox program, a way of communicating ideas with people, because you can make little worlds and it's pretty easy to use. It's all graphical design. You don't even have to code to do it, to use it. But anyway, let's see, React Native, is for talking about some of the other videos, but Unity, I mean, really, Unity, seriously? That'll be the day I'm fucking doing something they charge you to be using their shit. I don't know why .NET's this popular when it comes to like frameworks and stuff, unless they're talking about just general frameworks, but it looks like it's web type technologies to some extent. I mean, this is, I don't know. It's just a hodgepodge, I guess. I mean, TensorFlow, okay, that's for like artificial intelligence or machine learning. Ansible, that's like a cloud deployment system. So it's kind of a hodgepodge. You can only write so much into that. This is all about cluster computing, big data kind of processing. So is this, and Flutter is like a tool UI thing. Which apparently is based on a different language, as I saw in that chart that we first started out looking at, and we'll get back to in a second. These are the popular databases, so this is interesting. Cassandra looks curious, but I can see why not many people use this damn thing, because they don't even frickin' tell you how to use it very well, and they don't have any examples for you to look at. So that's kind of irritating. Oracle Mera database is pretty much the same as MySQL. That's a SQLite. It's going to be Microsoft's little product, which I actually kind of liked it when I was screwing with it a couple of years ago. But Mongo is gaining a popularity as part of the mean stack. And I have not looked at this very closely. But given its popularity, maybe I should. I think it's, let's do this right in front of the video, but I'm curious. Okay, yeah, I've seen it. Free and open source relational database management system. So it's really just a straight relational database. Handle range of workloads from single machines and data warehouses or web servers. So I think it's just a traditional database, it's not a NoSQL database, I don't think. Yeah, I don't see any open source relational data. Yeah, it's just a flat out relational database. So, I don't know. That's any reason to go with this versus any of the others. Let's see. Okay. But it's Cassandra. That's why I was kind of curious about it, because it's actually supposed to be, I think, kind of a hybrid database. So I know there were one or two of these from Apache were like that. It's supposed to be like it has some of the benefits of Mongo, but also with some of the benefits of like MySQL. So I'm just kind of curious about that. I'm intrigued, but not many people use it, so I don't know how much I'm going to screw with it, right? Platforms, Linux is popular for developers, so, and then Windows, but then you have Docker, so that means this is something that it should be looked into. So again, is it a real platform? I don't know. I mean, I think that's like a programming deployment technology or whatever. It's not like an operating system, but anyway, Android, okay, so that's like 27%, and then you got iOS down here, Amazon Web Services as a platform, okay, Mac OS, alright, Slack, I don't know why that's here. That's like a fucking collaboration system for teams to talk to each other, so you don't need to use email and social media and stuff's all combined in one. It looks kind of cool, but I mean, it's still, I don't know why it's here as a platform, but well, okay, whatever. Raspberry Pi is kind of interesting. I guess that makes sense to sort of have here. I got Arduino here even. So that's for embedded systems, but this is still a matter of not how many people are using it, it's a matter of its like popularity, I guess. So it suggests though that a lot of people actually have some experience with it, in the greater scheme of things, I suppose. You know, Heroku, I'm not surprised. These guys are a pain in the ass. I mean, I was trying to find tutors on like I don't know, what was it, the mean stack or something like that. I couldn't get around these fucking guys. This shit, kept popping up. They're trying to trick you on, getting onto their cloud service or whatever. Although I think they do have some, some freebies available on it, but I mean, still, obviously, it's not very popular because this is also one of the most dreaded systems they have. You'll see that down below. Kubernetes, isn't that popular here? And like I said again, I'm not sure. Okay, Linux and Windows are the most common platforms that our correspondents say they have done development work for this year. So I guess that's what it's about. So this gives you an indication of who's developing on what platforms. Not necessarily for that platform, I suppose, but at least using it as a workstation or whatever. Okay, now here we're the loved, most dreaded, most wanted. So loved and most dreaded and wanted languages. So Rust, okay, maybe a most loved language, but how many people seem to use it? Not really that many, as was indicated by some of the other statistics I've seen here. Is this the right graph? No, this is the same thing we're kind of looking at here. Yeah, I think this is a graph I might be looking for. Yeah, so Rust, oh, for fuck's sake, man, I should have put the title to it. So I gotta go back and do that. At any rate, yeah, I think these are the most popular languages or what the hell ever, but I mean, it does show you how many people use what language, so it gives you an idea, of what the percentage of popularity. And like I said, you look at something like Rust, dude, not that many people are using it. And even though this isn't a direct indication of that, it's still an indirect indication of how many people are using it on this particular graph. So, Rust, is pretty low down there. So even though a lot of people apparently like using it, obviously they're an eclectic group. So, because not that many people do it, so there might be something wrong with them or something. I don't know. I think Rust is, if I recall correctly, I think that's like supposed to be a real rigid version of C++. So I guess you'd have to be like really, like into bondage or something. I don't know, like that. But the fact of the matter is that you got Python here. Now Python, 73% popularity. Now again, let's look at where that sits in the greater scheme of things. Well, that's way up here. It's actually edged out Java. So this gives you an idea. There's a lot of people that program Java. So Java's become, a more popular programming language. A lot of people using it and loving it. So, so it's believe it or not, even though Python's been around for a while, its star is ascending. I mean, it's more and more people are adopting it every year. That's what they keep saying in the fine print below some of these graphs and so forth. Is that for the fourth year in a row, Rust is the most loved language. Response followed closely behind Python, the fastest growing major language today. So, Rust, how many people use it? Hardly anybody. Python, shit tons of people use it, and it's growing. So that's interesting. If you look at JavaScript, okay, or TypeScript, that's actually an alternative to JavaScript. So it's actually a shorter hand version of JavaScript, and but it's still something Microsoft did. So I don't know about it, but still, like Angular and some of those, I think, use TypeScript. And it may be Rack that does, I can't remember, but something uses TypeScript. When you wouldn't expect it to, you'd expect it all to be based on JavaScript, but TypeScript seems to be, you know, part of it or whatever. But it doesn't seem that different, so I mean, it might actually be worth it because you can write shorter code but still convert it easily to the JavaScript. Now Kotlin, certainly most loved, but not very used, surprisingly enough. So I guess not that many people are actually doing web development on, embedded applications, because this does kind of give you an idea of embedded applications development demand too, if you look at not just this graph but several others. So it was interesting to see, that it wasn't as popular as I would have thought it would be. It's not quite as popular, but I guess not everybody does, smartphone development, so I don't know. Clojure, I mean, that's, is an intriguing little kind of language that looked interesting. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to make of it. The guy did a good sales pitch on it, I'll tell you that. It's a lot like Lisp, apparently, a modernized version of Lisp. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know anything about it right now, but I'm still kind of curious. Swift, that's relating to Mac, so who cares? I don't own a Mac. I mean, I wish I did, honestly, but I mean, I don't own one, and even if I did, they're fucking harder than shit to get anything on their platform, so I really don't care about something that's that closed off. Just like iOS, good luck trying to get your program on an iOS phone. WebAssembly, that's intriguing. It's some kind of a assembly language-like thing that's meant to be associated with web, so you got like a binary file of some kind that, I guess you can generate a program in C++ or whatever, and cross-compile it down to this WebAssembly code, and it's something that can actually, most browsers support it apparently, but you can supposedly execute programs faster, but it's also great for hackers that want to embed malicious code in it and everything else. I don't know what to make of it, but I just found out about it today, actually reading this. I was like, what the hell is WebAssembly? And I went and did some investigation. Elixir, I don't know what the hell that is. Now Go, again, Go language is kind of intriguing because it's a concurrent language, and so I talked a little bit about that in some of the other videos, but I mean, I hadn't looked into it much. I mean, I wrote a little Hello World program in it, and I've got it installed on this computer, but I haven't really messed with it because, again, it's not really that popular. In fact, I don't even know if this is the best graph for this. I mean, I really just intended on making a video about that first, that first graph that I showed you, but yeah, Go, is not really, that popular. I mean, again, it's growing in popularity, but it's about the same popular as Ruby, which, like I said, Ruby, I'm kind of finishing up my studying it a little more in depth, and yeah, it's, Python's probably better, but I do like Ruby. I mean, it's kind of a neat little language, and it's good to know as a backup to Python in case there's something Python can't do or whatever, because I've actually used it that way before. That might just be a little easier to do in Ruby or what have you, but yeah, it's surprisingly not very popular, and with it, neither is Rails. So I mean, Ruby on Rails is actually kind of a dying off platform, so it's really not worth, because I was taking a look at that earlier today as part of my investigation into Ruby before I wrap Ruby up. But yeah, Ruby on Rails is, down to about the similar popularity, about 8% or so as a platform, and and even Django, and like we saw earlier, Django and that other, those two Python technologies are still higher, as a web framework, than Ruby on Rails. So I don't see why you'd want to really mess with it, particularly when you got, the Java stack and the mean stack and even the LAMP stack, for crying out loud, is going to, really be dominating the world, honestly. I mean, you'd be wasting your time with Ruby on Rails, I think. But I really don't, I'm not crazy about what I've heard about Django either, though, because supposedly it's pretty rigid in many ways, and can be kind of bloated. So again, I still think you're better off going to you know, if you're going to do web development, you're in stack development and all that, you're better off going through MERN and mean and stuff like that. Even though, you know, like I said, these, you know, okay, like Ruby and, damn it, you know, Ruby and Django and some of these, you know, it can be good for like blogs and stuff. But I'm like, man, you know, I know blogs have a role, but that was like a fad of like, you know, 10 or 15 years ago. I remember that was like a thing that I just started hearing about back before YouTube became popular and Facebook became popular. So I kind of assumed that, you know, Facebook and those technologies wiped that out. Because I mean, a blog, what is a blog? It's like having your own personal Facebook page. You know, it's really like it is. You know, what it is. You know, you can do a little more with it, you know, and it's got some advantages. But really, it's like either having your own Facebook page or website, you know, except that's more dynamic. Okay, you know, it's set up to be more dynamic. So again, it's like your own personal Facebook page that is on your computer or whatever, instead of being on actual Facebook. So, but that doesn't mean you're not going to be subject to censorship and everything else. So I mean, you know, I don't know that you're, you know, somebody's going to host you unless you're sticking it out there from your own computer. So I just don't, I don't know though. I mean, blogs, I mean, are they that popular anymore? I mean, I know a lot of people have blogs and stuff, don't get me wrong, but I mean, you know, seriously, I don't think that's like a dominant application on the internet, you know, enough for you to say, oh, I'm going to go learn Ruby on Rails. Again, if you're thinking of doing a blog, maybe you should, but then again, you got WordPress, you know, which is also known for blogs, you know, and again, that's why, I mean, it got started around those that same time period when blogs were becoming popular. Okay, and that's where a lot of these technologies that are now fading, you know, like including the Python stacks, are fading because they're being superseded by more modern technologies centered around web apps and all the stuff that these things don't do very well, you know, because they're just too bloated. So, I mean, I'm still not, you know, I just think that, you know, if you're going to do web development, you want to get like a job in it, or you're just wanting to do it for your own company or whatever, I would focus more on the regular technologies, you know, even Java, you know, would be better than going this route. But having said that, you know, if you're looking for a job, you know, Python is good, and not just because it has, you know, some frameworks behind it, but also because, you know, it's more than it's useful for a lot of things beyond just frameworks, you know. So, I mean, it is a pretty powerful little language, and you can actually compile Python programs into EXEs. I've done it. So, I don't know what the extensibility of that is, but I know you can do it. So, let's see. But, okay, but, you know, so these are the most loved programming languages. So, you know, that you know, is a gauge of popularity again. You know, and this is important because, you know, if programmers like something, they're going to be more inclined to learn it, okay? And if you're a business owner wanting to deploy technology and more people will know something because they love it, you're going to be more inclined to want to use that as a technology for your business because it's easier to find people that know it and you don't have to pay as much for them. And that's really the logic, you know, the vicious circle that develops. So that's why this is still useful to look at. Otherwise, you're just, you know, surveying people's opinion, like, you know, who cares? Okay, so you like Rust, you know. Like I said, not that many people use Rust. A lot of people use Python. TypeScript, that's, you know, growing in popularity because this for the same reason JavaScript is. Because this and this really could be combined. Because again, you know, I'm telling you, React and some of those actually use TypeScript. I was actually astonished that non-Microsoft technologies are actually using a Microsoft invented thing. Because from what I understand, Microsoft came up with that. Now Kotlin, again, high popularity, but not a lot of people develop it still. But it's growing though, because again, now it's become the official language of Android. You know, thanks to Google. You know, it may become increasingly popular. It's kind of a nice language. It's a lot like Scala. And then, like I said, it has something else. Scala, like I said, is a fascinating language. I just don't like the fact you got to install the whole damn thing for every single friggin' project you want. So I'm gonna stay away from it. You know, WebAssembly, again, not a lot of people do that. It barely registers. So, And same with Clojure. Like I said, you know, it looks intriguing, but it's you know, it's something you do in your spare time. It's not something you know, majorly you know, launch a lot of resources at in terms of time and effort, because you know, it's not that popular. Same with Swift. I mean, you know, dude, it's Macintosh. Okay, you know, well, it's not Macintosh. I mean, well, I don't know. I don't know much about Swift actually. I know it's tied to Apple, you know, but I don't know if it's like an iOS thing or if it's a Mac thing. I just don't, again, know much about Mac because I've never owned one. I actually did own some old ones, but they burned up in the fire, so. But I never actually got to buy a Mac. So anyway, but you know, C# is actually pretty popular. Okay, but again, you know, just because Windows is still popular and doing Windows desktop development is still popular, and I said it's actually an okay language. It's not as cool as I remember it now that I've actually had exposure to a lot of other languages since I studied C# 2 years ago, but it's still pretty damn cool. So you know, it's you know, powerful. But it's Microsoft and Microsoft only pretty much. Even though you can program in C# and other things, even I think in embedded systems, but I mean really Microsoft controls that damn thing. So I mean, I would rather be a little more versatile than that, than stuck with Microsoft anymore, because I guess their stars descending. I see it. I just get that impression. You know, JavaScript, of course, you know, is very popular. Dart. Now, Dart was associated with, now, we'll get to it later. I mean, it was on that graph though. It was associated with one of those other technologies. We'll get to it later. You know, HTML, CSS, again, these are pretty damn popular because a lot of people do know it as a front end, you know, set of technologies. See, it's ranked number 2 really in terms of how many people are familiar with it, you know, and use it, you know, and develop in it. So, you know, certainly a lot of jobs available in that front end area, and again, JavaScript is really closely related. Although I guess you can just do this and not know how to do JavaScript, but anyway, F#, you know, strange thing that's on here because that's pretty obscure. Even Microsoft can't, I think. See, I don't even see F# on here. So what does that tell you? I guess the, you know, the 10 guys out there that program in it love it, but so I don't know. I mean, unless I'm missing it here, I mean, I don't see it on here. So you know, it's very obscure, and again, this, you know, okay, a lot of people shell script, so what? Scala, you know, again, you know, not that many people actually program in it, okay? You know, it might be popular or whatever, but not that many people. 3.8%, you know, are using it actively. So I don't see it. You know, Java 53%, but again, it's still pretty damn popular. You know, Java is still something that's, you know, worth learning. You know, and the only reason I am interested in it is because I want to get into Android apps. Okay, and the thing is, Android's based on Java 6. You know, but you know, it's a fork of Java 6 that Google took off and ran off with. But the thing is that, you know, you got other alternatives like Kotlin and even like web apps based on Node.js and whatever else. You know, there's other alternatives, you know, to Java. But my concern is I need to be able to access the damn hardware. You know, I need to make sure that I can work with Bluetooth and work with Wi-Fi, you know, networking, because I want to be able to interface to my damn robot project. So that's why I'm interested in learning iOS, that and my sign project. So so because of that, I really want to make sure that I'm doing this right from the rear end and get at least this under my belt, so even if I do use more like Kotlin or something for it, at least know Java, and Kotlin uses the same damn libraries and virtual machine as Java. So I'll at least have some familiarity in case it comes in handy. So it's just worth knowing for me. But apparently a lot of people are using it again with the back end frameworks, based on the what was it called? Just had a brain fart. I went in and scoped out all these different Apache technologies too. By the way, most of these have to do with cluster computing and shit. So, what the hell was it? What the hell was it? Java, Spring, Spring, and JSP and stuff. But some of that was interesting too, by the way, because a couple of these were actually, Apache products were actually aimed towards Java. So I thought that was kind of interesting. This Tomcat implements several Java EE technologies. Spark is about that distributed cluster computing. Real-time computational systems for the Storm. That's based on Clojure too, by the way. Again, I was intrigued by. So apparently Clojure is like a big language for that. I believe. I think it's that. But one of these it is. I'm pretty sure it's that. I don't know if you see Clojure up there anywhere. Well, I guess you can't see Clojure here. Okay. Let's see. HBase. Most of this stuff is, again, for various stuff, various things. Enterprise software, in case you're interested, is really like banking systems and stuff like that. I just wanted to clarify that because it's talked about so much, but like government computer systems, all that crap. Just wanted to see if the definition had changed in the last 20 years. Ansible is a cloud development thing, but some of these things were kind of interesting because they did apply to Java. Two of these did. I just can't remember which ones. Here, this one, this struts. Cut that damn thing and move it up here. Okay. But at any rate, okay, so you got things like Erlang, and which honestly, you start getting down here, I don't know why people hate VBA. I actually like it, but I guess that makes me weird. Maybe they know something I don't. But again, I'm on Excel here. I've been using it, and VBA hadn't changed much since Excel 2000. I believe it or not. Although they do have some other flavors of it, I think, but it really hadn't changed that much. Like I said, I actually like it. If you really know VB programming, you get it. It's actually far superior to Python in a lot of ways and so forth, and Ruby in a lot of ways. Again, not always. There's some benefits, to the others, but it's not bad. That's where my background is. It's my alma mater, if you will. Objective-C, some people hate the Mac. I'm doing development on that because I think that's a Mac thing. Assembly language, so that's weird. Does that apply to embedded or PC assembly language, etc.? I don't know. It stands to reason it would, because of the, you'll see on that graph that this, and this are in a cluster, and that's really an embedded triangle. So it makes me wonder if that's where a lot of these people are using that, is for embedded systems, because you're going to find a lot of assembly language work still in embedded systems, more so than the PC, I would imagine. I have actually done some PC, assembly language investigation, and it's surprisingly not that tough. From what I looked at, I looked at it very briefly for like 30 minutes, but I wrote a program in 30 minutes. So on the PC, on Linux. Okay, PHP. Oh, and by the way, on that topic, you know, this is a little interesting little tool. This, hell, I guess I can't like show you. I can sort of show you. I can start it. Yeah. Now I haven't learned this because fully because the instructions are kind of weird. They have an update, but I don't want to do it right now. So I'll just know. Yeah, whatever. But anyway, this is actually a pretty useful tool. It's cheat engine. It's designed so you can make your own cheat codes in video games or your own trainers and stuff. But actually, it's a really powerful little assembly language tool. If you want to, go probing around, running programs and things like that, and see what they do, what in, like if you wanted to, know when I click the computer tricks button, you could probably find out with this damn thing. Because you can actually connect it to a program and actually have it monitor how that program does its shit, and actually it has some pretty good search capabilities and stuff, so you can actually find out what it's doing. It's actually a pretty impressive little program. It's a little crude, and the instructions on it are, you can follow them easy at first, but then it starts getting kind of confused. I think the person that wrote this is a Russian or something, but it's actually a pretty cool little program. So if you're interested in assembly language, you might check this out, because you can actually learn a lot about it just, looking at like, like Notepad or something, and seeing how it works with this thing. It's kind of cool. So anyway, but yeah, so anyway, the most hated things, C is actually not liked that much, and C is kind of an acquired taste, just ANSI C, but there are diehards out there that really do like it, but a lot of people dread it, and I can kind of see why. C++ is less dreaded, but people hate assembly language on the PC. I would imagine. I mean, I'd hate assembly language on the PC. But I actually like assembly language quite a bit. Again, if it's a system you designed anyway. I don't know how much I'd like it if I didn't design the hardware, but Ruby is actually kind of not that much loved, but not that much hated either. But you get down to TypeScript, it's fairly well liked. So so anyway, it's an interesting little graph. Let's get off it. Most loved, dreaded, wanted web frameworks. So Express, React, Vue. Okay, interesting. And Flask and Django and stuff. But that's nice, but not a lot of people really use it. So it's diminishing, I believe. Wanted other frameworks and libraries. Again, this is where you get into weird shit like TensorFlow and CryEngine and Xamarin, whatever. I don't even know what that is really. I know it's a Microsoft thing. Unity, hate Unity. That leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Apache Spark. I want a credit card number from you. I think you can look at it. I don't remember. I mean, talking through my head on that, but Node.js, etc. Okay, nice and dandy. But what's loved, dreaded, wanted databases? Okay, interesting, but irrelevant. Dread wanted platforms. Okay, a lot of people love Linux. All right. Docker, okay, weird. Kubernetes, weird. 70%. A lot of fanatics. Like Raspberry Pi, and I'm one of them because I like Raspberry Pi. It's a pretty cool little thing. It's got a lot of power packed into a small, cheap system. iOS, Mac, Slack, Android, Windows, Arduino. So, but again, WordPress is actually at the bottom of the list, interestingly enough. Most dreaded is WordPress. And this Heroku people, those cloud service people, I'm kind of not surprised, because they annoyed the shit out of me, and I haven't even used their product yet. But development environments and tools, so Visual Studio Code, Notepad, +++, you know, you get into, you know, mobile development, developers, you know, Android Studio, IntelliJ, etc. I mean, you know, again, kind of interesting, but still not quite sure what DevOps is. That's actually why I discovered this site. I was trying to find out what DevOps is, but you know, development operations. I mean, speculate. You know, that has something to do with. I have no idea. You know, developing entire networks or some bullshit. I don't know. You know, NetBeans. I'm surprised NetBeans is not that popular. I really like NetBeans. You know, I'll admit I still don't have a full picture of Eclipse, but at least NetBeans has a freaking GUI builder in it for sure. You know, Eclipse might, but it's just so convoluted. I can't. I don't know. I mean, I have a hard time getting the damn thing to work properly. And NetBeans, you know, it seems more refined to me. So, you know, whereas Eclipse seems more primitive. That's just my opinion, though, and it may change. Android Studio, and which I'm going to be getting into soon enough. Komodo Zen, again, you know, not really that relevant, just kind of interesting. You know, they do have some interesting, you know, statistics on here. Blockchain, you know, like, you know, useful across many domains and could change many aspects of our lives. Useful for immutable record keeping outside of currency. A passing fad, which I'm not sure if I'm in that camp or not, maybe. An irresponsible use of resources. I'd probably check that box just for the fun of it. Just to piss people off. But yeah, then we're back to the top paying jobs thing, you know, and like I said, you know, not a lot of people use Go. That's why it pays so well, because not a lot of people use Go, and not a lot of people are inclined to use it, you know, to learn it, because, you know, they don't perceive the demand there, but that sends the price up, you know, the pay rate up. So same with Clojure. I mean, that was one of the least used, you know, least known programming language, but that's why it's one of the higher paying ones. Same with Scala. You know, so some of these are obscure, but if you're lucky enough to find a job in it, you can get paid well, but that's the problem. There aren't a lot of jobs in it. You know, that's why not a lot of people know it, and not a lot of people want to know it, because it doesn't pay well. It's not just that, I mean, it does pay well, but there aren't a lot of jobs in it. So, you know, it's like, you know, being infatuated with lottery tickets or something. You're probably not going to win. You know, Erlang, you know, same thing. It's actually one of the most hated languages, if you noticed in the other lists. Kotlin, again, not very heavily used, but for the most part, yeah, the less popular the language, the more they pay. You know, Rust, not very heavily used. You know, a lot of people are fanatics about it, but it's not very heavily used. Same with F#. You know, even Ruby, it's down to 8%, but, you know, but I mean, I can get into Ruby. I actually kind of like it. But I don't know. I mean, again, I'm probably going to focus more on Python based on this for sure. C, again, not a lot of people like it, but you know, you're mostly going to be likely in embedded systems in that camp, even though there is some C on just the PC, but you know, it's pretty rare. But C is mostly for embedded systems. I mean, it's very common to program in C on embedded systems. Very, very just straight up ANSI C, because in embedded systems, they, you know, like on Arduino, you usually don't have the resources to run C++ very effectively anyway, because C++ with its objects and all that tends to be a lot more resource heavy. You know, it requires a lot of, you know, memory and, you know, architecture, you know, fast processors and stuff. And embedded technology, you're often dealing with pretty slow CPUs and not a lot of RAM, you know, literally measured in hundreds or thousands of bytes. So, you know, I mean, it's you know, usually tight unless you're on, you know, again, in a Raspberry Pi or something where you got, you know, a gig or more. Okay, Swift, you know, Java, you know, Java doesn't pay as well, but it's a much more popular language. Python, same again, quite popular, doesn't pay as well. You know, assembly doesn't pay as well, not very popular. Not quite sure, you know, what the reason for that is. TypeScript, again, more popular, but mostly because, you know, JavaScript is so popular, because these two really are one and the same. So, but again, more popular, doesn't pay as well. Dart, not quite sure, not a very popular thing and doesn't pay well, so I don't know if I'd bother, but we'll get back to that in a second. SQL, again, it's not a very hard language to learn, by the way. SQL, it's actually pretty straightforward. So I'm surprised it pays this much because it's so straightforward. I mean, it's not that difficult. I mean, it can get really complicated, but I mean, you can do a lot with SQL with just some pretty basic understanding of it. You know, R, I mean, that's for statistics packages and data scientists. What's that on here for? You know, it's like, I mean, why don't they have like Maple? I mean, 'cause that's like equivalent to, you know, I mean, you know, R is equivalent. I mean, that's like a statistics package language. Okay, well, Maple is a frickin' mathematics package language. In fact, there are lots of languages like that, but I don't see them on here. I mean, what? You know, I guess I just think it's relevant because a lot of people seem to talk about it. It's a statistics thing, though, and Maple can do statistics. But at any rate, and so can the, you know, whatever the free version of Maple is on Linux. I forgot what it was. You know, Scilab or something like that. You know, C#, you know, again, a lot of people know it. It is on Windows, you know, still going to be a very popular program, I guess. I'm glad to see it's that popular because that means people are still developing desktop apps, so that's cool. But you know, you can use it for more than just desktop apps, though. So, but still, seriously, I mean, that's why you'd be using C# for the most part. HTML and CSS, you know, one of the most widely known, so one of the least well-paying. Although I'm surprised these salaries overall are this high. I would expect them to be like half this. So, you know, even just for the U.S. alone, which is what we're looking at. So, in any event, we're back to the original graph, which is why I started this video, and then, okay, so Elixir and Erlang, don't know what that is. Yeah, Dart is related to Flutter. Like I said, that Google Flutter is related to Dart. So, because like I said, I thought it was UI Toolkit and was mostly going to be associated with JavaScript or something. So I don't know. I mean, I got to look into it more, but that was an intriguing connection that I didn't know, I wasn't aware of. And you got this Spark and Scala and Hadoop, again, this data cluster stuff. And here, Komodo, that's like a UI, isn't it? You know, TextMate, Coda, Light Table, you know, these are all, you know, IDEs, as you can see over here. The blue dots are frameworks, and red dots are databases. Languages are yellow, and platforms are purple. So, oh, you little bastard. Okay, but when you go look at here, you know, okay, here's Python. You got PyCharm, Django, Flask, but again, those are only some of the applications for it, for Python. But then you know, you get into like this TensorFlow and stuff like that. This is artificial intelligence kind of stuff, computer machine learning, that sort of thing. But you know, that is also connected to Linux, which is connected to Vim and PowerShell and all that BS. And you know, then you get the Docker and Redis, Kubernetes. So these are like technical, you know, kind of back-end internet-y things that, you know, are really for kind of the technical deployment of applications and, you know, that kind of thing. So, in other words, not directly website technologies, but for the management of those technologies. You know, here's the video game, you know, tangle here. This is a little funny. Raspberry Pi and Arduino, yeah, I'd expect those to be associated with each other. And then down here you see the C, C++, and assembly cluster, you know, which again, those are probably really associated more with embedded systems. I'm surprised there's not a connection there. R and RStudio, again, that's the statistics package I was bitching about. And here's the Ruby cluster here. You know, you got Ruby, RubyMine as an IDE, and Ruby on Rails. But again, that's kind of a fading sort of thing. still a lot of people out there do use it, but again, it's fading. Then you go over here is the Java ecosystem, and so you got Android associated with that, and and Eclipse and IntelliJ, and the bastards left off NetBeans. But you got Spring as a framework, and then Android tied into it as a platform, and Firebase. I've never heard of that. SQLite, SQLite. Isn't that C++ database? No. I don't know. It's MySQL, I think. Okay, so you got well, no, not MySQL. There's this database out there. It's based on like C++ or something, and it was really weird. But it's like a really compact database, but you had to compile it yourself. So I never really messed with it. I was kind of intrigued by it, but I can't remember the name of it. At any rate, I was wondering if maybe that's that. But Kotlin, and Android is going to be associated with that. And then you got iOS over here, and that little, constellation. But then you get over here, you got the Visual Studio, Windows, ASP.NET, and all this stuff. I still don't understand why, ASP.NET and all that stuff is so popular. It's again, Windows doesn't have a very big role to play actually on the internet. It really doesn't. It's mostly Linux. Not very much of the internet is actually driven by Windows. So that's why Linux is worth knowing. But at any rate, you got SQL over here, kind of tying everything together. HTML, CSS. So this is a real, the real constellation of web technologies are here. And like I said, they're only really loosely connected, really just through the database filament to the Microsoft network. But this is really the bulk of the web over here. So including cloud computing and stuff like that. Microsoft is trying to compete in that space. That's where probably some of this comes from. And I imagine Zarman has. I mean, again, I knew what that was like a couple of years ago, but I forgot what it was. Let's see, but yeah, you got your PHP, and your, it's part of LAMP stack, and your MongoDB, which is part of the mean stack, and MERN stack, and this Laravel, which again I forgot what that was. That's PHP Storm is some kind of an IDE. MySQL, the database. So as well as Maria, and those two are intimately related. Visual Studio Code, which is interesting because that's like should be like all over the place. Should be, I guess, it's most popular with these two, but that's interesting, the association here. I didn't know that. But again, I've used Visual Studio Code for Java, for Ruby, for Python. So with various results, I still think it's kind of crude, and I wish they'd refine certain aspects of it. But at any rate, that kind of covers it. And like I said, I'm not even halfway through this damn thing yet. You got employment status down here. Let me try to zoom out. Back to 100%. Okay. Employment status by geography, company type, industry, software development, information technology. Anyway, I'm gonna pause this. Some of this shit gets kind of weird. Music for focus while coding, so they're actually diving into that kind of data. I mean, seriously. Anyway, okay, and this is a little interesting part. This is probably like 3/4 of the way down the overall scroll bar here. You see what I'm saying? Right here. Yeah, this is kind of toward the bottom though, but it's about salary by developer type, so that's kind of interesting. You can see the engineers and developer, back-end developers. So if you're on the LAMP stack or whatever, you might get a salary in this range. Data engineer, development, mobile. So if you're in the mobile development, apps and that kind of thing. that's what you might be able to expect, something in that range. Embedded applications, it's just down my alley. Developer, full stack, educator, etc. And you get down to here. So that's an interesting spectrum. Again, this is just for, you got to adjust it for your region, and still I don't know about the respondents and where they're, generally located in the country. So salary and experience by developer type. Experience by language. Okay. Now, of course, if you're in the United States, I would ignore this because this obviously is not factored in for the U.S. Because this envelope doesn't even fit, the kind of pay ranges they're talking about up here. So, but you don't have a tab to select, whether it's from the United States or not. And this is not connected to this. I already tried. But this is saying, this envelope, okay, this is like the top range of the salaries, like 70-something thousand, okay, you really don't see much in the way of data points outside of that, so that doesn't correlate that this is relating to this. This makes more sense to be related to this. Wouldn't you agree? So they don't have this for the United States, so just be aware of that. People need to get their shit together. This hours of work per week is interesting, because the irony is I've actually never been a salaried employee, so I don't have a clue how much, how salary actually works. I just know the stories I've heard about it, and that companies like to exploit you because you only get paid for 40 hours a week, but they might have you work 60 or more hours a week, or what the hell ever. So I've always thought that was bullshit. So, but still, it's interesting to see what the averages tend to be, for the various, levels. Are lower than I would have thought. So I guess these people all do keep track of their hours. They don't have the United States there, but I assume that this is primarily the United States. I don't know. See, right now these are the hours I work. And have for like 25 years straight. But yeah, this is interesting. So, but yeah, I mean, I never even had any of my employees on on salary, so everybody was hourly, because I've just never believed in the whole salary thing. So that's I believe in paying people for what they do. So anyway, you might find this interesting. It's kind of amusing. This why don't developers participate in Stack Overflow? This is almost toward the bottom, but it's kind of funny how you can kind of read this and kind of get what these reasons are. It's almost like a word puzzle. So like comment, vote, points, enough, knowledge, reputation, update, so people are self-conscious, so they don't want to participate. Confident, feel like, add, nothing. Contribute, so people are being self-confident, like they can't contribute anything to the question at hand. Answered, usually, question, find, looking for. So in other words, they had their question already answered and they went off to something else because they're busy. Still learning, so they don't want to participate for that reason. Work, busy, so they're too busy to fucking participate. Help others. Okay, so that's why you don't want to participate. Confused about that. Got chance, so you hadn't got the chance to participate. Point system, so some people hate the point system. Need felt, never thought, never felt the need. Okay, good English. Okay. So some people don't want to participate because they're English, which that's cool, whatever. Problem, solution, solve problem, so somebody already came up with their own solution. So anyway, I just thought that was amusing. Alright, but at any rate, that'll conclude that. So anyway.